Hi, friends. Welcome back to Channel Surf with Jazz. If this is your first time here, I'm Jazz, and I watch a shit ton of TV and movies, and I read a lot of books. And recently, two of my worlds collided in the best way. There was a book that came out in August called Your Favorite Scary Movie, and it's all about the Scream franchise. Now, if you know me personally or even just a little bit, you know that Scream is my favorite scary movie. It's my favorite horror movie franchise. There's nothing that tops it, right? And so, of course, when I heard about this book, I was curious. I was like, who wrote this? Like, who is this person? That person is Ashley Cullins, and that person is here with me today to talk about the book and all things Scream. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for
Uh,
having me.
you are so welcome. I feel like I'm talking to, Nev Campbell, like you. She's my favorite final girl, and I can't interview her yet. So interviewing someone who has interviewed her, I feel like I'm just like that close. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I want to just talk a little bit about you before we jump into the book, before we jump into like our love of Scream. I definitely want to geek out about that today and also play a few games because of course.
Oh, games. Okay.
But I want to know
All
more.
right.
I see that you are from the Midwest and also a fellow Midwestern girly. Whereabouts are you from?
I grew up about an hour south of Chicago.
Fun.
Yeah, so central Illinois. And then I lived in the city for 5 years through grad school at Northwestern. Then I've kind of bounced all over since then. Was in Reno for 3 years, LA for 5, Nashville for 6, and we actually just moved back to the Chicago suburbs. This is Felix, my dog. He says
Hi,
hello.
Felix.
The other one, James Bond, is on my lap. Excuse me, sir. You're being very rude. We just moved last week back to the Chicago suburbs, so
Oh,
I am back in
wow.
the cold just in time for winter.
Exactly. The perfect time to go back to Chicago. All right. So we established that two Midwestern girlies. I want to jump to the end of the book before we talk about the beginning of the book, because in your acknowledgments, you said that a literary agent approached you to write the book. That sounds like a dream. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been comparing it to like remember how in like the mid to late 90s and early 2000s it seemed like every weekend some actress or supermodel was being discovered at the mall and you'd go to the mall with your friends and leave like bummed because it didn't happen to you. I feel like this is the nerdy equivalent of that. And so the fact that it did actually happen to me is just mind blowing. And I feel like the luckiest person on the entire planet.
Yeah.
I worked for Hollywood Reporter for almost 8 years, and I was a senior business editor. I had a very serious day job. I wrote about the business side of the business and litigation and didn't get a ton of opportunity to do like quote unquote fun things. And so when the 25th anniversary of Scream came around, I pitched an oral history because it was my first favorite movie. And I was like, this would be so cool. And so that came out and I was really happy with it. And then I just kind of like forgot about it and went back to work. And a few months later, out of nowhere, I got an email from John, who is now my agent, who is going to get like the world's most inflated ego because he comes up in so many of these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm going to send him this one where I say this. And yeah, John, you're getting credit again. And so anyway, he emailed me when I was like super pregnant because he had seen the oral history and he had seen the newest movie and he obviously didn't know me or realize I was, 8.5 months pregnant at the time. And he was like, there needs to be a Scream book. You should do this. Let's talk. And so we had a Zoom and it was just like a light bulb went off, like the most aggressive light bulb ever in my head. It was like, well, obviously I should do this. And so I ended up doing the proposal while I was on maternity leave. And I finished it like literally the revision of it the Friday before I went back to work on Monday.
Whoa. Wait, first of all, thank you, John, for reaching out. And apparently he sent you like a really warm email, like not a cold email, but like a really warm, cold
He's
email.
very good at emails. I will give him that.
Yeah. I'm so glad that it worked out. And it seems like everything just aligned for you after writing the oral history. So from the moment that you said yes to John to write this book to the moment that it came out in August of 2025, how long was that process?
It was, oh God, my younger son's like entire life. So about 3 years, just over three
Wow.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. I figured it took a while because in the book you say things like, "Oh, I talked to Kevin Williamson." If you guys don't know, Kevin Williamson is the brainchild behind Scream. You say you talked to Kevin Williamson, and then a year later, you guys followed up and you had another conversation. So I was like, oh, this took at the very least 1 year, but 3 years. Wow. And that was just getting like the outline right, getting all of the interviews, like doing the research. I imagine you had to rewatch all of the movies, right?
Yeah, multiple times. Yeah, I did the proposal in like spring of 2022. And then we sold it in December of
Mhm.
that year. And so I really started working on it in like late winter of 2023. I started doing interviews, I think it was February. And then my last interview was in March of this year. So
Oh.
3+ years total, about two of like actively interviewing and writing.
Yeah, and then you have some of the you have the OG cast there. Obviously, I mentioned you interviewed Kevin Williamson, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, the John Carpenter who created Halloween. He was actually so funny. There's a line where he's talking about like the assumptions that people make about horror people. He's like, they think we're all like "Muhahaha," and that kind of stuff. I audibly laughed at that because I guess seeing "Muhahaha" typed out in a book was so funny. But even just imagining him saying that to you, that cracks me up. But you also interviewed, like I mentioned, our favorite final girl, Nev Campbell. How hard was it to land interviews with all of these people?
It varies based on who it was and their role and how busy they were,
Mhm.
because these people are all so excited to talk about the franchise, but they're also like working.
Yeah.
And have a lot going on. And so I got very, very lucky early on in that one of the first people I talked to was William Sherrick, who's the producer of the new movies, and he was very helpful in connecting me with people and sort of being like legitimizing the project, because everybody who's working on the new movies is like, oh well, if he talked to her, then she must be a serious person, kind of a
She's
thing.
real. Yeah.
And I was able to talk to Kevin pretty early on as well. I started with sort of the behind the scenes people, because when you're working with talent publicists trying to interview actors, it's always, well, who else is participating?
Mhm.
And it's like, if I'm sending out, 75 emails, that's an exaggeration. I didn't email everyone all at once. But if I'm sending out a dozen emails at one time and you're the first person to respond, technically the answer is no one. So
Yeah.
I made sure to start talking with people where I knew I wasn't going to have that experience, because a lot of the times when you're making asks with crew members and writers, and it's not always through a publicist. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's
Mhm.
through a mutual connection. And so I sort of like built up steam with that, and I was trying to not be annoying with the actors publicists, because I was so afraid of getting a no and then
Mhm.
having to later try to turn a no into a yes. And in hindsight, I should have been much, much more annoying, because what I didn't realize is that the SAG after strike was going to happen and go on as long as it did, and that the guild was going to take the position that basically actors couldn't talk about anything they had ever made.
Oh my god.
And so, even though there was no universe in which the book was going to come out before the strike ended,
Right.
it was still one of those things where I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't talk
Mhm.
to actors right now. I should have bugged them, before this happened. And so that's when I started, reaching out to people like John Carpenter and Eli Roth and some of the film professors, and sort of leaned into the academic,
Mhm.
unbiased third party side of it. And then as soon as the actor strike ended, it was just like off to the races.
Yeah, no, that's quite a journey because, like, you cannot predict the timing of something like that. Like, you even talk about that in the book, how that affected a lot of the announcements that were made with some of the more recent films. And just with interviewing all of these people, it seems like you built really good rapport with them. They seem to be so comfortable. I know you said that everybody just is happy to talk about the movie, but it seems like you guys are able to build rapport. Were you able to kind of continue some of those relationships or turn them into friendships since doing the interviews for the book, or was it just strictly professional for this project?
I've kept kept in touch with a lot of people, and I was so just like heartwarmed is the cheesiest way to describe it. But we had an event at Book Soup in LA last month, and I'm like so obscenely late on posting about it on social media because I feel so much pressure to like say something profound to thank these people for their support. But like the room was like my friends from journalism in LA and a few friends, and then like a ton of people who worked on screen, and like people who I talked to for the book showed up, including Kevin Williams and Marion Madalena, Guy Busick, who's writing the new ones, Richard Pryor. Like there's so many people came, and I'm like, I cannot believe you're here. Like this is the greatest thing. It was a little bit surreal to be talking about the people who I talked to for the book, like while they were in the room. Like imagine having this conversation in front of them. But it was just awesome. And there's something really special about people who make horror.
As we come to learn by reading the book too, because there is this perception of people who make horror movies that they might just be dark or twisty. And based on like Kevin Williamson, he seems like a dream. Everybody talks about Wes Craven. He made Nightmare on Elm Street, The People Under the Stairs, all of these iconic horror movies. And everybody talks about him as if he's like a dad, like the warmest, sweetest person. That was really cool to read about him. And also really bittersweet, right? Because I would have been curious to see what he could have continued to do with the franchise.
Yeah.
So before we jump more into the book, can we play a little game?
Okay.
Ready? Your book is all about how the Scream franchise rewrote the rules of horror. And we know that the Scream movie is all about the rules of horror. It's 2025. We are coming up on a 7th Scream movie. Is there a new rule of horror that you would like to introduce or see be introduced into the franchise?
Into specifically the Scream franchise, or
it can be in general.
Horror as a whole?
It can be in general.
Ooh, new rule. Oh God. That's a hard question.
Yeah. I can tell you mine.
Yeah, you go first, and
Okay,
I'll keep thinking in the background. Okay.
I'll go first. So we're 7 movies in. I am dressed as Casey Becker. If you don't know, I have my Jiffy Pop here, my phone here, just waiting on Ghostface to call me. One of the new rules is anybody can come back. Anyone can come back from the dead, whether we saw them dead or not. That means Casey Becker could potentially make a comeback at some point, maybe as a ghost, as a hallucination, like Billy Loomis did. That's my new rule. All bets are off. Anyone can come back, even if we saw them die on the screen.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the casting announcements and the speculation as to how some of those people are back in the new movie. So I feel like you're going to get what you want.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty much guaranteed at this point. What would be a new rule? I feel like it's not a rule. It's not a new rule so much as it is acknowledging a long running rule that I feel like is vital. And that is to remember that as popular as, Ghostface is as a villain, these are not stories about the killers. These are survivor stories.
Yeah.
And so just keeping that perspective, and as long as you keep that perspective, you're going to keep rooting for the characters and not just like doing what you do in some other horror movies and like hoping that they trip and fall in that.
No, I like that tidbit. And you mentioned that in the book too. Like that is mentioned in the book that this is a story about the survivors. Ghostface, to me, there was a discussion on, I want to say maybe Twitter or X a couple weeks ago when they were talking about like the scariest like horror movie character. I unequivocally think it's Ghostface. And it's Ghostface because he could be anyone in your life. So having the conversation about Ghostface being scary, it obviously took me back to the first time I watched Scream. It came out in 1996. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater, but I remember like the first time watching it at home and the fear that crept through my body in the opening scene with Drew Barrymore. And you mentioned in the book how that tapped into this fear of like you're not afraid to be alone, because when you're alone, nothing can happen. I think I'm quoting directly from the book. When you're alone, nothing can happen. It's the fear of not being really alone. So after interviewing so many people and hearing so many different perspectives about the movie, has your answer to the question of why you fell in love with Scream, has that changed at all?
No, I think if anything, it just made me appreciate how much work goes into making it what it is.
Yeah.
Because like the end product hasn't changed, right?
Yeah.
Like everything I love about Scream, like that movie still holds up. Like
Mhm.
some of the technology has changed, like a flat screen TV is not going to kill Stu, like Stu's not getting crushed by that.
Right.
But you know, the whodunit aspect and the relatable characters and the comedy and the meta elements and the fact that like these are kids who live in a world where horror movies exist, as opposed to being chased by a killer in a horror movie and acting as if you have no idea what's happening.
Right.
And you know, I just think that like the amount of work, the even under the best of circumstances, it is an enormous amount of work to
Yeah.
make a movie.
Yeah.
And like these movies all dealt with so many challenges, so many different kinds of challenges, and they all still made it across the finish line. And it's, you know, the making of the movies is a little bit like the story of the movies. And, you know, there's some dark things that happen along the way, but at
Mhm.
the end, you know, you come out and it's a relatively happy ending.
Yeah, relatively. And it's such a special feeling too. I recently my fiance had never seen any of the Scream movies, and I talk about them so much. Like I have a poster, the original 1996 poster. So we rewatched them, and every time I watch the original Scream, I have this feeling that Casey could survive. I know she does, but in my mind, I'm always watching with this idea of, oh, if her parents just get there a little sooner? Like maybe she doesn't walk out to the backyard. Is that ever a thought for you when you're watching any
Oh
of the
yeah.
movies? Yeah.
I still am like, throw the phone.
Yeah.
Like, they'll hear you. Throw it.
Yeah.
Like, they're right there. It's cordless.
Right, right. That scene to me, gosh, it means so much. And it always makes me think about how I view horror movies now. I have not moved on from Scream, the original Scream, and I feel like now I'm watching everything and I'm comparing it to that, and I'm not getting the feeling that I got when I watched the original Scream. Is this something that you've thought about, like why new horror movies just don't hit the same way? And if so, why do you think that is?
Scream was, God, revolutionary sounds
Yeah.
so hyperbolic, but like it changed expectations in horror movies for fans. It
Mhm.
changed the way filmmakers thought about horror. It allowed horror to be scary and like a mystery, scary and funny. Like it gave layers to this genre that people at the point thought was sort of like less than,
Yeah.
because they had all become kind of like jokes of themselves in these long running franchises. And it's hard to reinvent things in ways that are actually improvements.
Mm.
Like you see movies, like I've used this example at a Barnes and Noble event a while back because somebody basically asked me the same thing. Like, do I think there's a horror movie that would ever change horror the way that Scream did? And I said, I think Sinners did,
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
because like it's hard to even call that a horror movie,
Yes.
because it's like a period drama musical that happens to have vampires.
Mhm.
And I think in addition to Ryan Coogler just being a genius and put two of Michael B. Jordan in anything and I will watch it,
I'll take it.
even one, but like two, come
Right.
on, is that it's that movie is genreless. He
Yeah.
didn't worry about trying to fit into a genre box. He just told his story.
Mhm.
And so the fact that the movie is hard to describe, I think, is the direction we need to go in if stories want to continue to be groundbreaking. Because when you're putting yourself in a box, there are only so many new things that you can do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you remove all of the constraints that you think you have to work in, you end up with something that's just like game changing, the way Sinners was,
Yeah.
or the
It
way
that's
Scream was.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you brought up Sinners because I will say, I think that was recent times. One of the times that I've gone to the movies and I left genuinely feeling like I saw something original. I saw something that I was not expecting in the best way possible. Like we went to go see Sinners. I don't think I actually knew what the movie was about before we just bought tickets to go see it. And I remember my fiance and I both looked at each other like, what the hell is this? And by the end, we were like, that was amazing. We probably need to see it again. So to your point,
So
right?
good.
Yeah, not putting yourself in a box, kind of taking the risks that people might say won't work, right? People might try to talk you out of it. Ryan Coogler, I imagine, pitching this kind of like time, this period piece with these vampires on the table with all of those pieces. It's like that shouldn't work, but the way he put it together, it just worked. Just jumping back into Scream in your chapter Meta, you go deep into Scream 3's behind the scene challenges, and it made so much sense to me that that film was kind of struggling behind the scenes. I think there's something special with the Scream films. You can feel when things behind the scenes just aren't really working well together. And I think Scream 3 was like the first time I felt that because while I loved it, it just felt different. And so to read your book and know that they were going through all of the things that they were going through, it made so much sense. Do you agree that that energy kind of came through with Scream 3, Scream 4?
I think that Scream 3 feels the least like a Scream movie.
Mhm.
It's very fun,
Yeah.
and, like, Parker Posey is a national treasure.
Yeah, she
Like,
is.
love her, love so much of
Piper,
the Hollywood
no.
commentary.
Mhm.
Ghostface, no. Love that, love so much about that movie, but it feels less like Scream
Yeah.
than the others. And Scream 4, I think, because even though the situation had deteriorated so badly between Dimension and Kevin Williamson at that point, I think Scream 4 suffers a little less from that because they at least still had his story,
Mhm.
right? Like he wrote Scream 4. He
Yeah.
he did some of the rewrites, the end of the movie. He wasn't around for it because of his relationship with Dimension exploding. But I feel like his presence is there. And so
Mhm.
that film on screen, you don't feel it quite as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Scream 3, I definitely think just feels almost like a different franchise with the same characters in the same universe.
Mhm. I agree with that. Like, again, like you said, it's always gonna be fun to watch, but it's something about it, I just didn't resonate with it, and I guess that brings me to a really fun question. I know you did this. I saw somewhere online that you actually gave your definitive Scream rankings in 2003, but for my audience watching, they don't know. So can you tell me and us your definitive Scream ranking, starting with your favorite down to your least favorite?
So the original,
Yeah.
they're not even really a close second. Like I
Mhm.
love all of these movies, but I truly think that I am one of those people where it doesn't matter how good any of the other movies in the franchise are, like existing or future. I don't think I will ever be able to bring myself to say that another one is better.
Same.
It's just my personality. At the time, I said 6 was my number 2, very closely followed by Scream 2.
Mm.
But, as I continue to keep watching these and rewatching them, I think there was a little bit of recency bias because that was a couple of months after Scream 6 came out.
Mhm.
I love so much about that story. I think the fact that they made all of these places that are supposed to be sources of safety extremely unsafe,
Yeah.
like you're not safe on the subway or in a bodega or in your own apartment surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Like, how can you as a group not win on your home turf when you outnumber the guy that many?
Right.
And the theater scene at the end being basically like a living, breathing Scream museum. Like, I
Mhm.
loved so much about that movie. But Scream 2 is like a perfect movie. And I think that over time, that one truly is like my second favorite. They're pretty close. I still do really like Scream 6.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
just like is it 1, 2, 6 or 1, 6, 2, right? Like it's been a little bit of an evolution. And then I would probably have to say, I'm trying to think I know what my answer was then. I'm trying to think about if any of the rest of my ranking has changed because the others are all like pretty, not as far removed, so it's like 1, 2, and 6. And then the next tier for me is 5, 4, 3. And again, I say 3 is my bottom if I'm ranking it as a Scream movie.
Right.
Not necessarily the one I enjoy the least because I think it's a really fun movie. I like it a lot. It just feels the least screamy. So I like if I'm ranking it just by how much I enjoy watching them, 3 is probably ahead of 5. It's probably 3, 5, 4. But if I'm saying the best Scream movies, in my opinion, it's like that feels there's something about the vibe that just feels like this thing is not like the others kind of a situation.
Yeah. So to sum it up, we got Scream 1, the OG, 2 or 6, very close together. And then we have Scream 5, Scream 4, and Scream 3. That is your definitive ranking as of 2025.
Yeah. And like I feel terrible saying it, but like the nature of ranking is something's got to be at the bottom because I like all of these movies.
That's it for me too. Whenever I'm participating in the conversation about it, it's always really hard for me. And I'm with you. We're in the same boat. The OG can never be touched. Like that's what got us here. That's what cracked this whole world open for us. I don't think you could ever recreate even just how I felt watching that for the first time. So the OG is always it for me. I'm going to go Scream 2, but also agreeing with you, it's not close, right? There's no world in which there's another Scream movie that battles the OG for my number 1 spot. But Scream 1, Scream 2, I'm going to say Scream 6, even though it's the one that I've only seen it one time when I went to the theater. But I remember how I felt leaving the theater after watching it. And I was like, we are so back, baby. Like that's how I felt after watching Scream 6. And then I'm going to go Scream 3, 4, and then 5. So, and it's like 5 wasn't bad, but it's the one that I connected with the least. And it's really close though between 4 and 5, honestly, because for some reason with 4, I'm like, while I'm enjoying watching this, like something about it, I don't know if it was like the cinematography, it might be something really technical, but I was just like, this feels different. Also, it could be that it was 10 years after the last one that I had seen. So I was like disconnected a little bit. I don't know, but that's my ranking. I love your ranking though. I always am so curious when I see people in the OG is not their number 1. I'm like, how? Like I know it's your opinion, but how does that happen?
A lot of people say Scream 2.
Yeah.
Which I get. And it might be better. I don't know. I'll never say never. I don't think I will ever put another Scream movie above Scream. But I do understand Scream 2, some of those scenes, like the opening lives rent-free in my head every single time I go to the movie theater.
It's the scariest thing. I went to see the OG Scream at the Terra Theater the day before my birthday. So October 16th, I went to see it. And there was a costume party. So I wore this. I dressed as Casey Becker. And there were ghost faces in the audience. And I was literally looking around. And I was like, don't freak yourself out. But what if this is like a real killer? This happened to Maureen in Scream 2. Somebody could come and sit next to me or sit next to my fiance and just get to stabbing us up. And I'll go to the stage and I'll cry out and people are going to think it's a bit. Like, what if this happens? It was kind of freaky.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so scary. My fiance actually, he thinks that Scream 2, if he did his ranking, Scream 2 is the number 1 for him. But I think that's because he didn't watch it when it came out. Like we just recently watched all and he watched them for the first time. So I think he's looking at it from more like a technical storytelling piece. Like you said, it's a good movie. So he's like, the best movie is 2. But it's only because he doesn't have the nostalgia and the emotional attachment that the rest of us have to the OG. I want to talk about 5 Cream. Okay. Scream 5. Because something in your book, Ghostface makes people horny. That is in bold in my notes. I highlighted it in the book. Ghostface makes people horny. What the F, y'all? Now listen, if you are somebody out there and Ghostface makes you horny, I'm going to give you a number because you need to talk about that with somebody. Because what was your thought? What was going through your mind when you heard that he makes people horny? Like this dude right here.
This conversation was just like so Like Matt and Tyler, the Radio Silence guys, are just like awesome people and they're so fun to talk to. And I spent many, many hours with them on Zoom. And, that section of the book is a result of like me just leaning into my natural curiosity and all of these conversations and things that like other people might not necessarily be like, wait, tell me more. Like Jack Quaid's Richie playlist, like it's absurd. And like, of course I was going to ask what was on it. Like it's so, yeah, we're talking about it. And it was almost like a throwaway comment. And I was like, wait, what? Because I had somehow missed this.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have not fully, like, I've not gone down the rabbit hole because I heard enough. Like, both Jack Quaid and Domain Revelry are like, oh, yeah, people DM me like Ghostface porn. Like,
Yeah, I saw that.
it's nuts. And I think what it is I think it's very much the same thing that makes Ghostface scary as a villain, is that like it could be anybody under the mask. And so for the people who are like hot for Ghostface, it's like, who are you imagining under the mask? I think is the thing.
That's a good call out, because now that I'm thinking about it more, okay, I'm getting out of my judgmental mindset and I'm putting myself into the mind of someone who is hot for Ghostface, which is great screen name, by the way. Somebody should totally use that. He does flirt. He is flirty. Like he was flirting with Casey. That's how he was able to get her to let her guard down at first. Like the voice, it's a deep, raspy voice. Like if you don't know the voice is attached to a serial killer, it's like, I could maybe, okay. You're asking me about my cool. Okay, I can understand, almost understand, not fully though. But if you are hot for Ghostface, please tap in. Tell us what it is that makes you horny for a psychopath, essentially. But you know what? You guys talk about that. Who got the note to be Ted Bundy because people found Ted Bundy sexy?
Tony Revolori.
Yeah. So people found Ted Bundy sexy, and he was obviously a psychopath. So I guess, there's a market for anything. There's a kink for anything, I guess. So before we get done, Ashley, I want to play one more game with you. And this one is called Dinner Party Guest List. Okay. And the way that I play this game with my guests is they usually have to tell me they have 5 seats at their dream dinner party, and they tell me a movie character, reality star that they would want in each seat. I want to know your dinner party guest list, but all seats have to be occupied by a character from the Scream franchise.
Oh, characters.
Yes, not the actor, the actual characters.
Okay. Sydney, obviously. That's a no-brainer. Jennifer Jolie, Gail Weathers. Who would just be like fun? I'm like, who both makes it a fun dinner party and also increases my chance of survival if Ghostface were to show up? I've got 2 more. I am going to go with, this is so hard.
I know, it's tough. It's a tough one.
I'm like, do I want to invite one of the killers?
I have a killer on my list.
Stu. I got to invite Stu. And because I feel like that's Billy's fault. It was, I talk about it in the book. It's a fully I do. Like, he peer pressure, man.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I'm tempted to say Randy, but like, I feel like the Randy Stu dynamic could get questionable. And the Randy Sydney pining could get awkward.
Because I was going to say, just don't sit him next to Stu, but then it's also like you kind of don't want to sit him next to Sydney either. It might get a little awkward. You're right about that.
I could say Dewey, but then the Dewey-Gale split is awkward.
So many complicated relationships.
But if he's dead, that like maybe they're still married at this fictional dinner party. I don't know. I'm putting entirely too much thought into this. I am going to say Mickey.
Love that. So we got 2 killers.
Yeah.
Okay. Dangerous, but
because
fun.
I feel like Mickey and Jennifer Jolie would have some stuff to talk about because she's an actress and he's really into movies. And also I feel like he was in a, not quite the same situation as Stu, but like he was definitely like being pushed along that path by Mrs. Loomis.
Mm-hmm.
So might not be like as bad absent her. I don't know. What's yours?
I just want to summarize yours. We got Sydney Prescott, Jennifer Jolie, Gail Weathers, Stu, and Mickey. That is
Yeah.
fun, funny but dangerous. Mine is a little similar. I'm definitely going Sydney Prescott. I want Gail, but only if it's Gail with the bang. Like I need to see the bang at the dinner party. So Sydney, bang Gail, Billy Loomis. I know. But I just want him at the party. It's gonna get very weird too. I'm gonna go with Chad though, from like the new age. And then for the fifth one, Maureen Evans. Maureen Evans. Because I feel sad for her. She did not have to go out like that in the movie theater. She just wanted to see a good movie and she ended up filled with holes from Ghostface. So that's my dinner party guest list. I loved hearing yours and I loved having you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to just tell you one more thing before we part. I shed a tear at the end of your book when you said you ended your acknowledgments and you go, no thanks whatsoever to the Santa Rosa City School District Governing Board. Exactly what Wes Craven put in the original credits at the end for the OG Scream. And I read that and it just capped off the book so perfectly. Reading this book really felt like I got an inside view at the Cool Kids Club that is the Scream franchise. And it was helpful in recapturing something that I felt so long ago when I watched the movie for the first time. So like thank you for like totally nerding out and writing this book and coming on a chat with me today. It's been such a pleasure. Where can people find you and follow you if they would like to?
Like I mentioned earlier, I am terrible at staying up with social media, but I try really hard on Instagram. So that is probably the best place. But I do have accounts, I think, on all of the platforms.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into my chat with Ashley Cullins. Make sure you guys go grab her book, Your Favorite Scary Movie. Trust me, if you are a fan of the Scream franchise, even if you've only seen one of the movies, it's a great history about the movie and how everything came to be. And it was just so nostalgic for me to read. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.